One. Hello, everyone. We are back in the recording session with Alistair after the Megatron weekend. That was amazing to see, Alistair. You were so many attendees, and for a whole weekend. Oh my God. If you don't know the event, I will link in the description to your Facebook event page. And it was a 2-day event where the first day was bolt action and the second day was Blood Bowl. So you could even win a trophy for attending both events, right?
Yes, that was very much the idea. So it's the vision I had a few years ago was to have an event, a 2-day event called the MEGATRON Cup. I love bolt action a lot, and I also love Blood Bowl a lot. So I wanted to combine the two, but also keep them separate. So if there were players that wanted to play in both days, they could compete for the Megatron Cup, which is just a crazy trophy. And there were 8 players, which I dubbed the Hateful 8, and they did it. They did both days.
Yeah.
But on the Saturday, the Megatron 3000 is the bolt action event, and on the Sunday, the Megatron Mega Bowl is the Blood Bowl event. And they both stand on their own feet as separate events. But if you are crazy enough to take on both, then you can compete for a special trophy. The great thing about it was this was the second year for the bolt action event, and the capacity of the venue for 6-foot by 4-foot tables was to accommodate 46 players, and all 46 players turned up. I could not believe sitting at registration as everybody's arriving, saying hello, meeting new faces, people I'd spoken to for months but never met them, seeing old friends come back. And when I was down to
46 players, man.
Yeah. When I was down to 45 and I was waiting for one more player, and I knew who the player was, and I knew he was traveling already, so I knew they were all going to turn up. It was just like, amazing.
It is the dream. It's the dream. I mean, if you run a standard tournament, 20-something players, there'll at least be one that calls in sick or something. It will happen almost all the time. But you had 46, and all of them turned up.
They all showed up. So that did make it the biggest one-day bolt action event in Scotland ever. I am pretty sure, because I'm pretty sure I've been to all the bolt action events in Scotland, more or less. So yeah, we're very proud to have achieved that. And then the next day for Blood Bowl, we had 44. So again, really strong numbers. And that was the first year for Blood Bowl. And Blood Bowl is a very popular game in Scotland, and there are events every single month. And so adding another one to the calendar, sometimes you wonder, are people going to trust that it's going to be a good event? I haven't been active in the Scottish Blood Bowl community since 2019, going to events, so people might have, I don't know, forgotten who I am or what I can do, but it was great that it all went off. But
brilliant.
With yourself, Bo, bolt action is the focus.
Let's focus on that. Yes. Could you, because we have the top 5 lists to go through, seeing if there's something that we can glean from those. Was there something as a TO that you would like to point out that you sort of saw for the viewers here that they could learn? Because Megatron is a theaters only, and you can only bring a theater list once. A theater list can only be taken once. So once one player has locked it down, that's it. Nobody else can play that list. So was there something that you sort of, because you have the overview of this, was there something that we can learn from this?
Well, because they only draw from the campaign books.
Yep.
And as you said, the theatre selector, once it's taken by a player, it can't be taken by any other. So it's a first come, first served basis. It means that, and there's an 18 order dice cap, and it's 1,250 points.
Yeah.
What it has always meant for me, and now that there's 2 years of it, I have never had to put a restriction on people's choices. If they want, there's no restriction on no more than 2 flamers, no more than 1 multi-launcher. You cannot take more than X number of these things.
Yeah.
The only restrictions I've ever put on have been that if you use the Stalingrad campaign book, there can be no Panzerfausts, just because there's a quirk within how you can build an army through that. It's a historical limit, which nobody has questioned because it's accurate, it's true. I'm not just making it up for the balance. There is no one singular strong campaign book out there. They have all got, all the campaign books in broad terms have got at least one or two good selectors within them. And looking down at the pile of books that we're going to review, the top 5 lists, 5 separate army books, and they're not just brand new ones. We've got Soft Underbelly, Empire in Flames, Fortress Budapest, Market Garden, and Western Desert. So that is a good spread of books.
That's a really good spread, yeah.
Like Western Desert came out in 2014. Empire in Flames maybe even before that. So and all different authors as well. So there's no one book that you pick up and go, this is the winner.
This is it. Yeah.
I did see a lot more players lean into the armored companies this year.
Yes.
Which is okay, because then armored companies limit the dice count that you can get. But it wasn't. And what I also did see was there were more players that were willing to take a chance on the minor powers. Even though it's only campaign book only, there's not a huge access to minor powers. There were still a couple of French players. Italy was a lot more well represented this year, which was enjoyable to see. And I think there was China as well, although they might have dropped out and been replaced. But the other thing as well that it provides is that the armies theme themselves. Yeah. Because they're coming from a theatre selector where you hope that the author has done the research, so that when these players are choosing, they don't get to combine all the super meta optimal units together. So, to my knowledge, there was no M3 Mark I Stuart in any of the 46 lists. They just weren't there.
Just imagine a tournament without a single Darkest Steward. What the actual...
I can also pretty safely say I don't think there was that many Gurkhas, if any, around. For sure there was engineers with flamethrowers and stuff and brain carriers kicking around, because they're there.
Yeah.
But what there was lots of Armour 9 tanks. There were, I think when we did a preview of some of the lists, units like Greyhounds made an appearance because they were good themed lists. Armoured personnel carriers outside of brain carriers, so there was more M3 half-tracks, the German half-tracks as well. There were more units that you wouldn't normally see at your standard, single generic, double generic, all unit access type event. So, and for the life of me, I always try and predict what theatre selector will do best, and I got it flat wrong again. None of the top 3 I would have said could have made it, for different reasons.
For me, I did the same. I was a bit distracted running my own event during the weekend, but I was very much counting on, CeeLo Heights being in the top 5.
We can't take CeeLo Heights. No, that's the army book.
Yeah, because it's in the army book, and when I looked down on the list of players and what they had actually brought, the selectors they had brought, I was like, I had not predicted those selectors, but I had predicted the players.
Yes, players definitely make the difference in this format.
They really do.
Are all the theatre selectors balanced to each other? No,
not.
But they can't be. But each individual theatre selector, when it arrives on the table, is a themed army.
It is,
and it has its own limitations, and we're going to find out exactly what those limitations were for some of the players.
Yes, we are, because we are going to talk through the top 5 lists, and for the life of me right now, I had the lists out, but we are going to talk about Phil Mason first. What had he brought? Here we go.
So
he brought a Chinese army. I'm going to.
He didn't. Empire in Flames. He took the Imperial Japanese Army, Kwangtung Army, 1937.
the Kwantungs.
So
right.
We've talked about this in the past.
I'll just share my screen so we can show the viewers the list.
I'll show the viewers the book. Empire in Flames. Buy the book.
Empire in Flames. Kwantong Army, 1937, 18 order dice. So he's right on the buck for your dice cap. Yes. 1250. He's brought a second lieutenant regular because you have to. It's Japanese. Then ITA veterans. Ooh, these are hard boys. Look at that. Two 8-man squads here. An engineer squad also with 8-man and a flamer. Veteran again. 2 heavy mortar teams. Ouch. 3 sniper teams. All of it veteran. He really wants his army to survive, huh? One suicider, veteran. 2 heavy howitzers, regular, with spotters. Wow. Okay, I can definitely see Phil doing well with this list. Horse-drawn limber, 2 Type 87s, armored cars, anti-tank rifles, and a light truck. Right. Alistair, the Kwantong Army, we two have talked about this before.
Yes. So the thing with the Kwantong Army in 1937 is that this is when the Japanese army was very much a professional army before you get to those late war bamboo militia nightmares that you sometimes come up with. And, you know, when we do these reviews, what we're looking at is I've got the selector in front of me, and it's a review to see is like, did the player leave anything off the table that they could have gotten from the selector?
Yeah.
You know, so he's got 2 8-man veteran squads, which are great. He's got the engineer squad. The engineer squad is able to come into the selector via a back door because it's a unit in another book, but it says that whenever a veteran squad is available anywhere in a Japanese army, then the engineer squad can arrive. So in it comes. He had a 0 to 2 choice on mortars. He took them heavy. He had a 0 to 3 choice on snipers. He took them veteran, went in hard with them.
All in on the veterans,
He had 0 to 2 artillery choices. He went for the big guns, double heavy howitzer. Yep, that's exactly what you want. Armored cars, he could go 0 to 2, and he did. 2 Type 87s, so fast moving MMGs putting out 10 shots. Sadly, there is a quirk. Because this is 1937, there were no suicide anti-tank teams, but because the way the army lists get put together, it's still an option for them, which I have not restricted because it's a restriction too far. I don't like to do that. So he went with 3 suicide anti-tanks, all veteran. It's a fantastic list. In my opinion, Phil didn't leave anything off the table. The veteran truck is there for the engineers. So it's nothing's inexperienced. It's regular or veteran. It's 18 order dice. Good troop count. Actually, no, that's a lie. I take that back. It's not a great troop count.
No, that's the only thing that I sort of feel like he's missing out on. He could have maybe scratched together the points to convert something into 1 or 2 more infantry units. But that would mean cutting down on something else. And his support is just absolutely great. Yeah,
2 heavy howitzers, 2 heavy mortars, shooting from the back line is amazing. Then he's got the 2 armored cars for close support. You know, to be fair, the dedicated anti-tank is the suicide anti-tank teams.
Yeah.
And as I mentioned earlier, there were a lot more armored companies going around, but those tanks were armor 9+ tanks.
Yeah. So a suicide anti-tank team would be really dangerous to a 9+.
Yeah. So you had the right
if you
tools.
Can get it to connect.
So you had the right tools, but for me, in 5th place, I don't actually have his actual full results in front of me. I think if you give me a moment, we can maybe find that. Just so we can see how he actually did game-wise. But no, for Phil, I don't think he left anything off the table at all.
No.
I can't really see myself changing anything in that list.
I could see myself trying to get like 1 or 2 more infantry units in, but I'm not sure what I would cut down on. Maybe take out one of the snipers.
You see,
yeah,
it's a tough ask, isn't it?
It is a tough ask, because what are you going to leave out? And the rest is just so good.
So I've got the results that Phil had. So he got 3 wins.
Yep.
But the way the scoring quirk is that you get 5 points for a win, but there's a secondary objective on each table which gives you 2 points.
Yep.
Killing your opponent's HQ gets you 1 point, and keeping your own HQ alive gives you 1 point. So the maximum points you can take away from any game are 9. 9 points for a victory. But in Phil's first game, he only got 5 points. So he won the game, but he must have lost everything else.
Yeah.
In his second game, he got 7 points. So that looks like he won the game and got the secondary objective. But then in his third game, he got 9 points. He got the full shebang. So you can feel like he's getting more in tune with the army.
Yeah, and he's figuring out what to do and how to get all those extra points. Yeah.
And it's not a critique of Phil, just a statement of truth that at last year's Megatron, he also won all 3 of his games. But he never, I think I said at the time that the army he used at that time, he almost exhausted the army to win the game and never had enough left on the table to scoop up the extra points. And that might have been true for a couple of his early games. So, but great list from Phil. I wouldn't change it. I'd try and run that. Easily.
Yeah. And I'm really looking forward to, because Phil is joining me in a few weeks' time in Holland, where we're going to play the Dutch Nationals. And if he's coming off of such a good result here, he's going to be a beast there as well.
Yep. I hope he's luck that he takes, because he had bad luck in Denmark previously. I hope he doesn't have, bad luck in Europe whenever he gets on a plane. The luck stays in Scotland.
He needs the Highland Air in order to function well, apparently. Yep. I don't know. Right. So that was Phil Mason. And then in 4th place, we had Peter Barrett.
Yes. So the Juggernauts decided to travel north, which was very nice of them. And Pete picked the 6-corps reinforced platoon from Soft Underbelly.
Yeah.
On page 159, and he came in 4th.
Yeah.
So
not unexpected that Pete did well. He is a good competitive player. I haven't seen him play Americans before, so that is always interesting to see people pick up an army that they may be familiar with, but we haven't seen them do this before. And looking through the list here, he brought a 2nd lieutenant inexperienced. He brought 2 times 7 Rangers with a BAR. They've got tough fighter, so good skirmish units here. 2 6-man veterans with rifles and BAR. 1 rear echelon squad, which is very, very cheap, I think. 7 men, 42 points. They've got a green and jittery special rules. Then a sniper team, a flamethrower team, heavy mortar team with a spotter, a Sherman, an A4 Sherman, which has the medium anti-tank gun. And it's veteran, so it's gyro stabilized. He brings 2 of those. Nice. So that is a double Death Star and a Jeep for his flamethrower.
Yep.
Not a lot of order dice in this list.
I would never have picked this list to be anywhere near the top. I think it was 12 order dice. I didn't think it could do it. I thought it was a really great themed list, as it should be. But I didn't think it could make the grades. But the player did it. Looking at the options though that he passed over, and I'm not saying he passed over them to his detriment because he finished 4th, but it's more information for the audience that what the things he could have taken. Had the option on 0 to 2 forward observers.
Yeah.
Artillery, air, or naval. There was the option on 0 to 2 bazookas. So he invested the points in veteran tanks for his anti-tank. If he didn't want to go down that path, there was the double bazooka option. But beyond that, obviously he had a 0 to 2 option on tanks, which he took and invested quite heavily in. Looking at that tank list, there was a M5A1 Stuart, M4 or M4A1 Sherman. There was the gun carriages, tank destroyers, mortar carriers, howitzer mortar carriage. There was the M15 multiple gun mortar carriage. So he knew he needed anti-tank, and he took the anti-tank options from that, which I agree with for the build. So it's not the list I would have taken for the selector, but it obviously played well.
And he might actually have had luck in the draw as well, because if he had predicted that there would be a lot of armor-heavy lists, and he brings 2 medium anti-tank guns mounted on Sherman carriages, I mean, that is really, really good for anti-tank duties to beat down armored lists. This is more or less what you would want to have.
Yeah, but again, though, it's that fear that the dice count's low. 12 order dice.
Yeah.
But he's got, fast moving. He's got the Rangers, so he's got Rangers lead the way for getting onto the board. Talking through his results, though, he opened up his account with a 9-point win. He did really, really well in his first round.
Yeah.
And he killed 10 order dice on the way doing it. So good on him. Then next he got 7 points. But that is actually highlighted in blue, which means it's a draw. And that is possible. So what he's actually done is you get 3 points for a draw. He's then claimed a secondary to take him to 5. He's killed his enemy's HQ, and he's kept his own alive to get him to 7. 7 points. A 7-point draw is just an insane amount of work.
So good. That is so good.
And he only killed 4 order dice on that game, so it must have been a very tactical, positional play style of game in round 2. I wish you could remember what he played. But again, that I would think that's more testament to the veterancy of his army and the infantry units, if they're able to dig in and hold the secondary.
They are. They're very, very good, tough, survivable units, except the rear echelon and the lieutenant. Everything else is really, really survivable.
Yeah. But again, talking about the points, I see that as a benefit of the scoring system, that if you can't win the game, if you can't win the mission, focus on the secondary objective, focus on keeping your lieutenant alive to get you some extra points to see you through, to keep you going. So if he wasn't able to win that second game, for the life of me, I can't remember what mission 2 was. I want to say it was No Man's Land, actually. So it was a straight kill points mission. So if he wasn't able to win that, he made the best out of round 2 that he possibly could.
He really did, yeah.
And a very similar story appeared in round 3. So Pete was on the second top table in round 3, and that was, I'm sure it was key positions. Yes, it was key positions was the last round. And he got another draw, but he got 6 points from it. So he's got 3 for the draw. He's obviously got the secondary for 2 points, and then he's either kept his lieutenant alive
or killed.
No, he must have kept his lieutenant alive to get the last point. So Pete finished 4th with 1 win, 2 draws, but they were high-scoring draws and a very high-scoring win. So he has done well with
very well done with a difficult list to play.
With a difficult list, and that's the player making a historically themed list work.
Really, and making a huge difference. Then we had that was Dan Lane coming in at 3rd place. So this is, again, not really a surprise that Dan Lane does well.
Can you remind me what page that's on for Dan in the book?
Can't remember. It's the Parachute Battalion in Market Garden. Not sure.
Got it. Page 18.
Right.
Market Garden.
Right. Now, for those who don't remember, Dan Lane is part of the Juggernauts. He was the judge at the last WTC, and he has been crowned best player at the WTC, best individual player at the WT as well, from Cork. So he is not a nobody. And he brought Market Garden U.S. Parachute Battalion platoon here. He has an inexperienced second lieutenant. He's got a free British artillery observer because this uses the British rules. He's got Pathfinders, 6 men with rifles and SMGs. He's got paratroopers, late war paratroopers, veterans. Most of the units here, 7-man units, have BAR. And a Dutch resistance squad, inexperienced 5 men with 1 SMG. A bazooka, a jeep, 2 light mortars veteran. Interesting. 2 medium howitzers with gun shield, 2 medium anti-tank guns veteran. Wow. An airborne armored jeep with an HMG, and that is it. This is a skirmish list that I would not have picked out for top 5.
Nope, wouldn't have picked it. What I think, did he leave anything on the table, off the table? No, he didn't. Other than he had the option on 0 to 3 US airborne armored jeeps, and he only went with 1.
Yeah.
But it was 0 to 2 anti-tank guns, 0 to 2 light or medium howitzers. I suppose we both a fan. There was a option on a resistance squad, which he actually, he did take that.
He took
the
one.
Dutch resistance squad. Yep. I think maybe towards the end it was become a, how do I spend all these points when I've got so few options, which is why the light mortars are veteran. But I'm almost speechless that this list did so well, especially though because it went against a little bit against the flow of the list. There's no tank, there's no armor in this list.
There's no tank, but notice that there are actually 4 guns that can shoot directly and hurt tanks.
Yes. Exactly.
2 medium howitzers, 2 medium AT guns. That is a lot of lanes of fire that you can cross the table with, and on the right tables, that can be deadly to enemy armored platoons.
You can imagine the players when they saw actual anti-tank guns getting set up. That would have just been a bit, I haven't seen those before, let alone 2 of them.
Yeah.
But again, though, so it's a really strong themed list, going against the flow of the river in terms of no armored vehicles. It's got no transports. It's all, parachuting them in and start running.
Yeah.
And I actually would never have picked this list or this selector because I don't think I could make it work. I couldn't do it.
No, you have to be very, very experienced at playing Americans, at playing skirmish armies, in order to make this work. And just imagine having all those skirmishes, and you're going to have to go out of your own deployment zone, right? You're going to have to push up a little bit. Having all those skirmishes in front of your 4 guns that want to shoot directly, you're going to block yourself up at some point. That's almost guaranteed to happen.
Yep.
And if he still wins the games, he is an amazingly good planner, I think.
No, he's executed it well, and his results more or less reflect that. His first game, which was Sectors, he got a 6.1, so that is a 5 point for the victory. So he's kept his own lieutenant alive. Obviously not able to get to the secondary or kill his opposition. Game 2 was a 7.1. So again, I'm just speculating, but that could be no. Actually, I know that I stood at the table and laughed at him. Sorry, Dan. He won the game. He killed his opponent's lieutenant, kept his own alive, but he didn't make a move for the secondary when he had the advantage because he killed 12 order dice on that game. And
so he forgot to move on to the secondary.
I cannot remember if he forgot or if he just didn't prioritize it, but he left that on the table. But then his third game, which was key positions. He got 9 points and killed 10 order dice. So Dan was equal top for most bloodthirsty player at the event. He killed 32 units over the course of 3 games.
Wow.
There was one other player that did it, a guy called Max Bohm, who I've mentioned previously. His luck arrived and he did really, really well in terms of killing stuff. So he was so Dan with the no tank list was the most bloodthirsty player on the day.
That is so cool. Yeah. Well done, Dan. That is really well played. Really well played. And that, of course, leads us into the top 2. Second place was taken again by a Jogger player. So the Joggers are in 4th and 3rd and 2nd. And this is Topher's Western Desert Platoon.
Yep. So what's it looking like?
So he brings regular infantry 5-man squads. 1, 2, 3, 4. That is the only way to do this. The only reason why you would do this is to put them in brain carriers, in my opinion. A free Indian squad, a light piece of artillery, the 25-pounder, of course, with a spotter, a Humber scout car, and 3 Shermans. Regular Shermans, one of them being the armored platoon commander, and then 1, 2, 3 pintle-mounted LMGs on Bren carrier chassis, a quad tractor, and 2 trucks with pintle-mounted machine guns. This is an armored platoon for all intents and purposes. It's got the armored platoon commander. It's a tank platoon. It's got 3 Shermans.
Yep, and they're not even special Shermans. They're 185 points regular, so there's thin sides. They're going to go on fire really easily. This is very much 1942.
It is.
He made the choice though to take the 10-man Indian squad as his national characteristic, and within the player pack that meant that he couldn't take the free artillery observer because having armies of the Commonwealth with 2 free units at any points level is wrong, in my opinion.
It is.
So he selected to have the Indians, and then he's got the troops that fill out the brain carrier as his sort of little mobile fire bases, and then there's the truck for moving the Indians up. And I think how many squads of 5 did he end up with? Was it 4? 4 squads of 5 infantry.
Yeah, 4.
Yeah, so.
So one of them can go in one of the trucks because he's only got 3 brain carriers.
Yeah.
So he's using his brain carriers and trucks as mobile machine gun platforms.
Yes.
The quad tractor is just there because he needs something to transport his.
Needs the tow.
He needs the tow for the 25-pounder, and then the Shermans can they can form an armored wedge basically and just push up, and he can have his Brens going behind them, shooting up all the machine guns. This is an armored fist.
Yeah, from what I overheard and laughed about, the Humber Scout car, he used as some form of distraction, and he was doing armored tank charges with it.
What?
To try and scare people. So, is from what I overheard from time to time as he chuckled away and as players were about, oh, how does that work? He used it as a tank charge because it's a wheeled vehicle. It's armor 8, so by the letter of the law, it can do it.
By the rules, it can.
So, yep, I am damn sure it's got recce as well. So if it's a last dice, first dice situation, I don't know if he ever got a successful one off, but I'm sure he had a lot of fun, telling people that he could do it. But it's a good, armor platoon. It's on page 101 of the Western Desert campaign book. Mm-hmm. I thought that because the tanks, they're not sub-quality tanks, but because they've got the inbuilt deficiencies of the Shermans, I thought they might get shot up. a little bit more. But looking at he got 3 wins. He got 6 points on his first win. So that's the win and keeping his lieutenant alive. Game 2, he got 9 points, so he really hammered it home. And then on game 3, I can't remember what table he was on, probably the 3rd table. He got 8 points.
So 2 really, really good games there at the end. Yeah.
So he finished strong. I know that the first game he played against a German list that won Best Painted, and I think that player, I'm not going to say managed to frustrate him and hold him back quite a bit. Which was good. So no, it's a solid list for 1942, very themed. If I'm going to throw something in there, it was a very sort of min-max approach to it though, with the 5-man squads, putting them in the armored carriers. But it plays the strategy, and the list allows it to happen, and it's fully mobile, so it meets the needs.
Well thought out and well conducted lists here.
But again, though, you look at it and it doesn't have any of the crazy stuff. You know, no flamethrowers, no P-ETs, anti-tank teams. There's no multi-launchers. There's nothing, crazy about it. It is okay. They're minimum size infantry squads, but it's guys with rifles, brain carriers, actual things that were in World War II in big numbers. So I wouldn't. Good stuff.
Really good. And then for the first place, we have very low order dice, but again, an armored platoon. It's Graham Thompson with his Guards Mechanized Brigade.
From Fortress Budapest.
And this brings T-34 tanks. So it's got a command vehicle tank here, regular. It's got 2 more T-34s with the medium anti-tank guns. Really, really solid 9+ tanks. 195 points. So also in a good price range, I think, for a medium anti-tank gun 9+ tank. That really works. Double Katyushas, which is where you can actually see that this is a player going for the win and not just for the theme. Double Katyushas is really, really hardcore. Mounted Recon, 1-2 of those, and a Tank Rider squad, because that will mean that he can take 1 less transport, because the Tank Riders, of course, can go on one of the tanks. The Mounted Recon, of course, have flamethrowers. A sniper, a tank hunter team with a Panzerfaust for men, veterans, submachine guns, a truck, a Komsomolette, and that is it.
I wouldn't have put this list anywhere near the top 5, just purely based upon its dice count. Again, at 12 order dice, I didn't think it could do it. One of the tricks, though, for the Guard Mechanized platoon, it's on page 152 of Budapest. They don't get the free unit. These guys are, specialized infantry. They're trained. There's no chaff, so no free infantry unit. When they pass an order check, they shed D2 pins instead of just the automatic 1.
So they are not very pin vulnerable, and because they don't have that one large semi-useless unit, they don't have to take the extra truck, which means that he can focus all his points on what he actually needs. I think that all the choices here are good. I, like you, would be worried at the dice count. But
because it won the game. It won the event. 3 games. He got a 9-point win in the first round. He got a 9-point win in the second round, and he got an 8-point win off the top table. So you can't question the fact that it actually did it, and the player has made the difference here. The 3 Armour 9 tanks, and they're, as you said, they're good tanks. They don't come with any of the deficiencies like weak sides. Medium anti-tank gun, the T-34-76s as they are, there were many of them. The multi-launchers having 2 of them. So if you know you're going to be coming across bigger dice lists, so you're going to get the option to roll lots of dice for them, and the infantry was the weaker point.
Yeah, again, like we saw with a few of the other lists here, the infantry is scaled down because it's a tank platoon.
Yep. So yeah, there's very minimal infantry. So I guess if he was able to protect that, which obviously he was, and keep them tucked away and only spring them out at the last moments to make safe attacks or to claim and contest objectives, then that's fine. And the one thing as well for Graham and for all the armored companies is that your command vehicle is your lieutenant effectively. So keeping it alive,
really easy to keep alive. Yeah,
keeping it alive is a little bit easier, but it also means that you can't hide it. You know, if it's a 200-point tank, you can't hide it away.
That is true.
You have to get it out there and you have to get it to fight. But that was the winning list from Fortress Budapest. Great book, one of my favorites.
So takeaways from me. We did see some of the usual suspects here in the top lists nationwide. Again, we saw Brits doing well, we saw Soviets doing well, but Americans were there as well, Japanese as well. So there is a good spread. That there seems to be a really good spread on which nations and which selectors can do well here and which books.
If I can run you down the top 8, it was Soviet Union, Britain, United States, Japanese, German, United States, Italy.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good spread of nations.
That's a very, very good spread. And very different from what you'll see in generic reinforced platoon tournaments right now. Also, as more or less as expected, I think for me, once you allow the armored theater platoons, that would mean that many of them will do well at theater events. So I'm not surprised that these did well, but I am surprised that the dice counts did so well. So that's something to watch out for again, I think.
Before we wrap up, I do have to thank the sponsors for the event, of which there were many, and a rundown of the sponsors, because from the prize table, everybody walked away with a prize. And a great many people walked away with more than one prize based upon where they finished. But Warlord Games, Rubicon, Footsore Miniatures, Osprey Books, AnyScale Miniatures, KOed Design, GAMEMAT.eu, Micro Art Studio, Exit 23 Games, Die Waffenkammer, Demonscape, Studios, MarDav 3D Printing, 3D Printing Valley, First Core, Weldon Tabletop Wargames, Weyland-Yutani Terrains, Wargames Atlantic, and Ammo by Mig Jimenez. And of all of those, I would like to say thank you and highlight, I think, Warlord Games for their fantastic support, Rubicon for their continued support, Wargames Atlantic for sending me 2 batches of prize support because the guys were just so brilliant over there, and MarDav 3D Printing. They were very, very supportive in the very first time they've come on board, and I know myself and Bo are going to do some hobby-related videos in the future, and I'm going to use some of MarDav's 3D printed product within that.
Nice.
Awesome.
So we're looking forward to that. We will link as many of them as we can in the descriptions to the video. Thank you, everyone, for stopping by, and that was Megatron 3000.
It is on again next year, August 10th and 11th, 2024 in Stirling at Common Ground Games in Scotland. I'm going to do exactly the same again.
See you all there. Cheers, everyone.